Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is your first time here, you're welcome. If you're already an existing subscriber, hi, welcome back. So this is the sewing part, part 2 of the last video I posted. So this is the outfit. I'm just showing you what it looks like. I'm showing you the finishing, I'm showing you the back. I'm also showing you the side, the front. So I'm just showing you guys what it looks like. So let's get into it. So first of all, I'm just showing you my pattern and my pieces. I finished cutting it. I cut the front on fold. I have 1 inch on the side, half an inch, 3/4 inch on the hem, 1/4 of an inch on the armhole, 1/4 of an inch because I'm going to turn that with a bias tip. I have my allowances. I have a seam on the center back because I want a seam on the center back. And then I have a half an inch on the top part of the neckline. So I'm showing you my collar is cut on fold. If you remember the pattern we drafted, and I have 2 pieces of that. So that's what I'm just showing you there. So now the first thing I'm going to do is trace out my darts from the dart leg, the new dart, not the first one, the second one. So now I'm done showing my dart. I'm just showing you what it looks like after tracing it out. I'm making a notch on my waist. This is my back pieces, and I'm making a notch at the waist on the other side. So the first thing I'm going to do is join the center seam. I'm not going to join it all the way to the top. I'm going to be measuring at least 8 to 9 inches or even 10. And I'm going to be stopping there. So I'll sew from the down and I'll stop there. So I'll do that and show you guys what that looks like. So I'm just taking off my pin. I'm going to pin that down. So I'm just marking the line so you can see. So I'm done sewing that. Can you see what it looks like? I've joined my back piece together. I'm going to press that open, and then I'm going to attach the back and the front. So I'm just opening the back and then I'm opening the front. I'm going to be facing right sides together, and then I'm going to sew my sides. So I'm just pinning from the waist. Remember the knot you made at the waist, always pin from there and then pin all the way up and pin all the way down. So I'm going to sew the 2 sides together and I'll come back and show you guys. So I'm done sewing, guys. So I didn't sew all the way to the down. I wanted slits at the side just so that it looks more flattering. So you can do that if you like, or you close yours up if you don't want. So now I'm going to be sewing in my armhole. So I've just flipped it inside out. I'm going to be using a bias tape. Yes, a bias tape to sew my armhole, starting from the neck all the way to the other end of the back. Starting from the armhole on the front, all the way to the end on the back. So this color was not enough, so I'm going to be using black. So in case you're seeing black, you know why. So I'm done sewing that. I've used my bias tape to sew that, and I've turned it in and I've sewn that down, so you can see my bias tape. So now for the back, because I'm going to have a button there, please guys, you can use a serger, an overlocking stitch, to overlock your edges before you fold that down and sew that down. So now for my collar, I'm just showing you the collar. I have 2 pieces. I've ironed hairstay onto one of the piece, and I don't have hairstay on the other one. So when I notice anytime I use hairstay, my fabric ends up stretching. So I'm just putting the one without hairstay on top, and then I'm going to trim out all the excesses coming out that must have stretched out from when I ironed on the hairstay. So that's what I'm just doing. I'm trimming out all the excesses. If you align yours and you don't have any excess, you can leave yours. But if you have, please just do it like this and trim off the excesses. So now I'm done doing that. I'm just taking off my pins. Then I'm going to assemble the collar, right sides facing each other. Okay. So now I'm just pinning that down. So at the end, not the rounded part of the neck, the bottom part of the collar, I'm going to be folding half an inch in, and I'll pin that. I'll do the same thing on the other side. Fold it in by half an inch. And then pin that down. So after pinning that, I'm going to be putting in my button loops. So the first thing I'm doing is marking out the half-inch allowance I have at the end of the collar. I've marked that out. and then I'm going to be putting my button loops into it, making sure that the part of the loop is inside, then the part that is the joining part will be outside. So I'm just marking the 1/2 inch allowance at the top so I know where my first loop starts from. So I'm just putting that in and I'll pin that down. And then I'll put the second one before the fold, before the 1/2 inch fold. Just putting that in. Showing you what my loops look like. Putting that in. It's my button loops. And I'll sew that down. I'll pin that down rather. So after doing that, I'm going to sew. Do you see the direction of my hand? All the way to the down. So I'm going to sew that down and I'll come back and show you guys what it looks like. So guys, before I sew that, I wanted to show you guys how to make your own button loops in case you do not have the already made one. So I have a strip of 1 inch. You can make it very long, just showing you a shorter version. Then I'll fold this in half, fold the other side in half, and then fold it on top of each other. And then I'll sew on top of it all the way to the end. So now my string is ready. I'm done sewing that. So next I'm going to be cutting this into pieces of 2.5 inches, 2.5 inch long. I'm going to cut that into pieces. So after marking that, I'll cut that. Please guys, pay attention to this part. You do a crisscross, yeah, just like that, and then you sew on the 1/2 inch allowance, and then you have an 1/2 inch for your button to pass through. So that's how I do my own loop if I do not have the pre-made one. So now I'm back from sewing the collar, the direction I told you to sew, and I'm done sewing that. So I'm just trimming out all the excess so that when I flip it over it can lay flat. Then I'll flip it over and iron it. So this is it. So the next I'm going to do on my neck, front neck, fold that into 2 and find the middle. So after finding the middle, I'm going to make a very small snip there so I can know that that's the middle. Then I'm just trimming out the allowance, or rather the excess on the front, making it a rounded U instead of having pointy sides. So now this is the collar. I'm done ironing it. I did not only iron it. You remember the 1/2 inch we folded in when I was sewing the edge of the collar? I folded the 1/2 inch all the way on the inside. So from one end to the other. So now I'm folding it into 2. I'm going to be marking the center of the part without the hairstay. The part without the hairstay, the part that the 1/2 inch is not folded in. Just making a small snip there so I know the middle. So now I'm going to fix this middle to middle. I'm going to pin middle to the middle. Then I'm going to also pin where the front neck collar ends. Do you see what I'm doing? I'm going to mark that with a chalk. Sorry, not pin. Please guys, make sure the chalk is very visible. I'm marking the other end where it ends. So now I'm going to take the collar again to the back. Exactly how it would be like if I was wearing it. I'm going to take it to the back. I'm going to pin the head of the collar to the beginning of the center front, to the center back. The middle of the middle part, that's the center back. And I'll pin the other side. Use the chalk to mark it so I know where that ends. Then I'm going to do the same thing, exact same thing to the other side. Pin and then mark where it ends. I'm pinning, I'm stretching, and I'm going to mark where it ends. So now guys, this is a really tricky part, so please pay attention. After doing that, I'm going to remove the pin from the center. I remove the pin, or whatever pin that is there. Then I'll show you guys how I finish it. So now I'm going to flip my collar inside out. Do you understand what I'm saying? Flip it back to the wrong side. Now I'm going to fold down. Please guys, pay attention to this part. I try to make it as slow as possible. So I'm just pinning down, just using pins to secure it, making sure that they are leveled, the two fabrics are leveled. So I'm pinning that down. So after pinning, guys, you see the first mark you made from the back to the second mark, you sew that point. You leave the space in between the third mark and the second mark, and then you sew the third and the fourth mark. Let me go and sew it and show you guys what I mean. Do you see what I mean? I only sew from that point to that point and the other point to the other point. So I've left my middle and I've left my sides. So now I'm just going to flip this back to the right side. So I'm just flipping it. You can use a scissors or any long thing to poke out the sides. So now I'm done bringing that out. So now, guys, pay attention again. I'm going to iron that flat. This part is another really tricky part, so please pay attention. So for them, I'm going to pin the middle to the middle. Just pin that down. And I'm going to, do you see what I'm doing? That space that I did not leave is the exact space for the front neck and the back. So now I'm just going to be pinning my pieces. The side without the hairstay, the side without the half-inch fold. That's what I'm pinning to the main fabric. So I'm going to pin that. As if you're having difficulty pinning, please bring it out. You can push out some of the fabric. You see what you can push out some of the color from the inside, so you can have enough room to work with when you are pinning. So I'm just going to pin that down. And then I'm going to do the same thing for both backs. Pin it down. That's what I'm doing. So I'm going to sew that. I'll sew the center, the front, and I'll also do the same thing to the other back. So guys, this is what it's looking like. I'm done sewing it. So I'm just showing you what it looks like when I'm done sewing it. You see it's open. And I'm also going to pin the two neck side at the back with the opening that I've already prepared for it. So I'm going to be pinning that down. I'm also going to do the same thing for the other side. Then I'm going to sew all that down and I'll come back and show you guys. So you can see I'm done attaching it. This is what I meant when I said sew each one for each of the space that we left for it. After doing that, I'm going to flip that over, just showing you what it looks like at the front. So now I'm going to turn my fabric inside out. I'm just showing you. So now we're going to close up what we have just done. So I'll push the excess of the half-inch I just sewed inside. You see what I'm doing? This is why it's good to iron your half-inch allowance down, so it just makes your work easier. So I'm putting the excess inside and then I'll pin it down. And I'll do the same thing all the way to the other sides. Do you see those other parts that we sewed down are already laid flat? So it's only these parts of our neck that is exposed that we just have to close up. So that's what I'm doing. I'm just putting that inside. Close it up. So after doing this, guys, I'm going to turn it over to the front and I'll top stitch on that nook on the front, on only those parts that are attached. Do you see it? I'm going to make it so that, and I'll iron that and I'll show you guys what that looks like. So this is it. I'm done attaching. Do you see? You can't see the seam from the front, but you can see the seam at the back. That's what you do to make your work neat and okay. So now I'm going to fix my button. After fixing my button, I'm going to fold up my hem, fold that into two, and that's pretty much it, guys. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, leave me comments, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye.